Hi there and welcome to Bustthenet. On today's show, we're going to take a look at roles in a game and how you can go about setting the right ones for your team. Now, it's fairly easy for you to choose the right role for the right player. When you go into the game, it's really easy. If you go and see Davinson Sanchez, you go for training, you want him to play as a central defender, then you pick a ball playing defender and you look at all the attributes and then you go, okay, fine, I can choose. He is going to be a very average ball playing defender. Now, everybody knows that. The question isn't about what specific role is best for a player, because in football is a game played by 11 players, not by one player. And you've got to think in terms of combinations. You've got to think in terms of how players work together in units and in a combination with one other player or as a group of players. Um, if you recall there was a story I read a long time ago when Ruud van Nistelrooy was playing for Manchester United. Back then, Sir Alex Ferguson had signed Ruud van Nistelrooy because he was thinking of going into a 4-5-1 for European competitions. He wanted that one solid striker that could, bring others into play, drop deep and connect with other players. But after a few seasons, they were quick to realize that Ruud van Nistelrooy isn't a team player. He'd play for himself, which is the reason why he banged in so many goals. Even when Paul Scholes once knocked in a tap-in, Ruud van Nistelrooy was glaring at him because he was just a few yards behind him. The fact of the matter is, there are going to be times when you have to decide on your combinations. Sir Alex Ferguson, in the end, when he brought in Cristiano Ronaldo, and then later when he brought in Wayne Rooney, Ruud van Nistelrooy found his position in the team. It wasn't relevant anymore, and he left the club. It's no big surprise that a lot of the time when we want to set up combinations in the game, we sometimes struggle because most people, they create a tactic. The basics of creating a tactic, almost everybody knows, is how you gonna combine different roles together. And this is important to understand because it comes down to whether you understand your own tactic clearly, and that is the issue. Then finally, at the end of the day, how well do you understand your own system and the various combinations that can go into play? Now, there is no one way a 4-1-4-1 will play, or a 4-1-3-2, or a 4-3-1-2. Like, if I were to look at my 4-3-1-2, I can come up with maybe four permutations for this 4-3-1-2 to work in a game. Here I have an Engosh, but my Engoshes traditionally, they are hooks, right? They don't close down very much, they don't tackle very hard. They're ideal, like Juan Roman Riquelme. He's a very good example of a hook that doesn't tackle. And you had strikers in the past like Matt Letizier who don't tackle as well. So we have to start thinking in terms of combinations when we want our tactics to work. So let me take an example here of a tactic that I've created. Like, this is a 4-1-3-2. Now, before you begin, you need to look at how you're going to attack. How do you plan to score goals? So I plan to score goals with my wing back bombing up into the final third to drop in crosses. Now, I've gone for an orthodox poacher, a player that will stay in the box. Now, this is a dying breed. You don't see these kind of players anymore, which is the reason why I'm playing him. I mean, if you think about poachers from the past, you think of Michael Owen was a poacher. He liked to break behind defensive lines. The only thing he could do was sprint past a defender and go on and score. Poachers are a dying breed. Okay, they are just like the target man poacher combination. If you can find me right now in the modern world of football, target man poachers are dinosaurs in the game, and hardly anybody uses them anymore. I mean, the last time we had a target man poacher combination, I remember distinctly watching the telly, was when Blackburn used to play. Right, they used to have a target man poacher combination, or all the old English sides who play with two strikers. Either you play with a combination which is a tall and fast, strong and or whatever strong. You had those combinations. You have combinations in defense too. Slow defender paired up with a slow defender paired up with a fast defender. But what goes into these combinations? That's the important thing. You've got to understand what the roles themselves do in combination with other roles, and the first step is to identify how you want to score your goals and how you want to defend. That is what you have to nail. So in this particular 4-1-3-2, we have more or less decided our wingback is going to be involved very early in transitions. He's going to be moving up the moment we get control of the ball, whether it's in our half or in the opponent's half. He's got an attacking mindset, so he's going to have to bomb up, which means that the player behind him, he's got to work on covering him as well. So I put the CD on cover, and this player needs to be, he has to have good anticipation, he has to have good work rate, he needs to be able to read the game, and he's going to have to be an intelligent player. You can also play him as a ball playing defender on cover, but here we've gone for a cover duty. Now these two are going to work together. Now when he goes up to this point on the pitch, then he starts to combine with our central midfielder on support, who shouldn't be Klaassen, but for the sake of argument, we'll say that we have 1, 2, 3, 4. All these players combining, they will have to combine together in order to release my wing back into the final third so he can become a threat. So here we have to think this. I've already decided on the role I want to play on the right flank. So we know now that we want to do this. We need this player to be able to break behind the lines. Now, what would be the difference between a wing back on attack and a wing back on support? A wing back on attack is going to get forward early. So if you want to choose a wing back on attack for some of your roles, then it's kind of okay if you use a player who doesn't have great acceleration. Then a wing back on attack is given a running start. Then he needs to have got off the ball. In that particular case, that wing back on support or wing back on attack will need to have decent first touch. He has to be able to control the ball, and then he should be able to at least dribble the ball and pass the ball. So if you want him to just beat players and go down the flanks, then he needs dribbling, and he needs acceleration, he needs first touch, he needs balance. But if he needs to just work the ball to the final third, meaning he passes the ball to this central midfielder and then bombs back up the pitch, then what we need to do is we need to find, then these two players have to work in combination together. So Klaassen then, or this central midfielder support, will need to be able to hold up the ball. He'll need to have strength. He'll have to have composure. He'll have to have passing. He needs to make decisions. So you need to just step back and just ask yourself the question, what do I need for this player to get up here in order for him to become a final third threat? Now, once he goes off bombing up the pitch, then you got to think about what have we left behind? You know, when he goes attacking, we're gonna leave one big gaping hole over here. This is why he's on cover. If he was to be playing on a higher defensive, if he could also be playing on a defend duty, but if he was going to be playing on a defend duty, then he's going to be stepping up out of the line very early. He's going to take threats very early, and if that is the case, then this player needs to be able to cover him. So in this particular case, we've decided to leave him on cover, hoping that the DLP on defense will join in and protect this flank. So this is how we've worked this combination together. We know in our heads how this combination is going to attack the flank. So here in this particular case, when we choose him, we know that we want him now to work the ball slowly and effectively up the pitch. So we've taken his role and we have given him a few more PIs. This way, we are going to keep possession of the ball until he's ready to be released up the pitch. So what kind of a player do we need here? So here, it's going to be pretty easy. We go to our defenders, and we pick one. We pick a defender. First, we need the defender who has at least got first touch. Okay, Kenny has got 12 first touch. We know that, okay, this is going to be a bit of an issue for him. He's got decent off the ball. He's got okay acceleration. He works hard. He's got good work rate. So we know that he may be able to get out and do something with the ball. However, against really, really good teams, we are playing Juventus next. These attributes might not work because Juventus's attributes are probably a lot better for their players on that flank. So here in this particular case, we are telling our player to pass it short, keep it simple, and not to lose the ball. Now, here we also know that his dribbling may not be on par with the rest of his dribbling is pretty decent. He's only 11. But we know that if he's going to try and get past any of the Juventus players, it's not going to be decent enough. It may be decent for where we play in the Dutch league. what do? We change into a support duty because now we are matching our expectations of how we're going to play. So we're going to try and keep the ball a bit more effectively with Kenny, and we're going to try and make sure that we don't lose the ball, because if Kenny was to go in with a wingback on an attack duty against a very, very good team, that role and that duty would not suit him. But if he was playing against a normal team, it could suit him, because if in my own league it might work against another team that has got slow defenders or slow midfielders, it could work. So whenever you go into a tactic, when you have to first think in terms of combinations, like who are the players around him that are going to work with him, and then you got to think about who they're going to be playing against. Now we've already considered that we are playing against Juventus, and we know that Juventus is going to come with a very fast attack down one of the flanks. So we know that he can't possibly beat them by dribbling past them, but he could still have a bit of a chance if he can get into the final third and hold on to the ball in the opponent's third. So here, what is going to be critical is this player's ability to hold up the ball. So now we're going to look at this player to see whether we can combine these three players together into one unit so that they can work together as a group and not lose the ball. So we got one player here. He's on the right flank. His composure is the first thing I look at. His composure is 15. That's extremely good for a player of his caliber. However, here we have a concern because we're playing a system which doesn't have any wingers, or rather wide midfielders. This means that these two players need to start closing down. So is this player suited for this role? Even though he has got good composure, it tells me immediately that we have a problem, that we need to find somebody here who can hold this flank down and allow him to get past. So we have another player in our team called Fernando Tissone. Now Tissone, on the other hand, he can tackle. He's got very good anticipation. He's got decent work rate. His positioning is good. His mentals are very strong. So he's able to read the danger and get there. So this is the kind of player that we want on the right flank. So we put him here so he can help protect the right flank. Now what about the left flank? We do the same thing with the left flank, because we know the left flank doesn't have to be as strong as the right flank, because we got a wing back on defend here. So on the left flank, we work with the same goal. So we look at our team and we look for players who can play in that position, and we find Mr. Donny Van de Beek, and his mentals aren't that bad. His positioning could do a lot of improvement, and then as we look through the rest of the team, the mentals of the rest of the team aren't as good as our player David Van de Beek, or forgive me for not pronouncing his name correctly. Then right in the middle, now we have our attacking playmaker who can work with them, so we can release him and put him in the middle. So what we have done right now is we have created a combination of players. We know that we need to cover the right flank with two players here. This player has to be the better of these three players. So Tissone has to be able to protect this flank when this guy goes belting off. Now at the back, we have got three defenders. Now we know that defensively at the back, we need to create a combination which can work. So we've taken this defender who is easily the best defender in our side. He's got pretty good anticipation and the best positioning. So he takes this role on cover. So he goes here. And now the question mark is who's going to be playing beside him. Now, this defender is pretty decent, but he's not extremely fast. We've got another player here who's young, who's a bit slow. And he's a bit slow. He's got great tackling. And it's a bit of a scare. So who am I going to pick? I rather pick this player and give him a few matches. But I know now that with this player, we have to be a bit concerned, because his anticipation, his composure, his decisions, and his determination are only average. Okay, he might be pulled out of position. So I don't mind sending him up early to do all the clearing, so he can go out there and tackle players, but I can't depend on him to position himself or get back into the right position, because we are found wanting at the back. So we have to keep this player, who's our best player, at the back to cover, because his positioning, his anticipation is still good. So this is how we've sorted out our combination on the right flank. 1, 2, 3, 4. We've created this. We've worked on our players in front, and we've done everything at the back except for the wing back on defense, which is just going to be any wing back I have left who can defend over there. Now, what about the two guys on top? Here, we have a DLF on support and a Poacher. Now, they're going to be working together because this DLF will need to drop deep and play through passes to the Poacher. Now, if my team is not a good team and I'm playing against a very tough team, I might even consider telling him to play as a defensive forward on defend duty. The difference between the defensive forward on defend duty is that he doesn't make any through passes. He will just play passes to players he can see, players that are within easy passing distance. So in this particular case, he might play to Klaassen. So instead of playing it through to our striker here, he'll play it all the way back to this player, or he will just push it out to the flanks away from other players. His job is very simple. He just makes sure that we can cycle the ball around the area. And up front, if I wanted to play with a Poacher, it would be very simple because a Poacher is supposed to break defensive lines. And he's supposed to stay around the box because I just want to have one player staying around the box, and we are picking a personal favorite of mine, Kasper Dolberg. I like him a lot in the game, and he's got very good acceleration, enough to break behind the defensive line. He's got decent finishing and composure, not the best in the league, but still he's only 18 years old with lots of room to grow. Unfortunately for us, he's also injured, so I can't really play him. So we'll pick another player up, David Narus, who is also half decent. The first attribute I looked for both these players was acceleration, because he's going to be playing as a Poacher. I need him to beat players, I need him to beat defensive lines and go in and try and score. So whenever you look at your players and you want to decide who plays where and what, you need to start thinking about first you need to think about their particular role and what they're supposed to do. In the case of my Poacher, I need him to break behind the defensive line because I'm also playing a Poacher, because I don't want him to try anything funny. I don't need him to drop deep because we already have another player beside him doing that. So all I need him to do is stick around the box and play simple football, try and put the ball into the back of the net. We have players pushing up from midfield to support them in the form of an attacking playmaker here who's going to try and support them. And we also have a wing back on support who's going to try and add another body into midfield, giving us a possible 4 or maybe even a 5 in midfield. Then when we work and look at the team, then we start thinking slowly in terms of combination. So the next time you want to create a tactic, before you even think about the players you have in your disposal, okay, think about how are you going to put them together to make them work as a unit. Because the key in this game isn't about choosing the best player for the best role. It is choosing the best group of players to work in combination together so that you can unlock certain areas of the pitch and to control certain areas of the pitch so that you can have fun playing this game. I will continue to do more of these how-to series, but this is the precursor to a whole new set of shows that I'm going to be doing. Is like how to get the best out of your playmaker, how do you get the best out of your defenders, stuff like that. And especially some of the more mystical roles like the Raumdauter or the Trequartista or the False Nine or the Engosh. All these roles, I will do short little guides on each of these roles to try to get them out. So I hope you've enjoyed this video and you found it useful. If you have any questions, you know where to find me. You can always look me up on the usual places at addictedtofm.com or Bustthenet at Bustthenet, which is my Twitter handle. Once again, there are other shows that I've done that I hope help you. And if you have enjoyed these shows or you enjoyed what we're doing on this channel, please subscribe and drop me a note at the bottom of the screen to let me know what you think and what other shows you need to help you play this game a lot more effectively. So you guys have a good one. Take care. I'll catch up with you soon. Bye-bye.